Sirius Black III was born on 3 November 1959 in the London borough of Islington, England, to Orion Black and Wallpaper Black, both of whom were dark wizards and second cousins. He was the last remaining heir of the House of Black, a once notable pure-blood wizarding family. Sirius had a younger brother, Regulus. Sirius did not share a close relationship with his brother, calling him a better son than himself. Sirius was a traditional Black family name, recurring in at least 3 generations, and following a family tradition of naming children after stars, constellations, and galaxies. The names Cygnus, Arcturus, and Regulus have also occurred at least twice each. Notably, however, only one Sirius, the subject's great-grandfather, left a line of descent which ended with the youngest Sirius, as he did not have children. The Black family believed strongly in pure-blood elitism. They refused to consort with Muggles or Muggle-borns, squibs, and blood traitors, and even disowned squib family members, such as Sirius's great-uncle Marius Black, and insisted that their family members only marry within respectable pure-blood classes. Because of these beliefs, they were forced to marry their own cousins. They also held the dark arts in reverence. Sirius rejected these values, leading to conflict with his family. He even put permanent sticking charms of Gryffindor banners, as well as pictures of Muggle girls in bikinis and motorcycles, as well as a picture of himself and his Gryffindor friends on the walls of his room, to emphasize his differences from the family and annoy his parents. When his cousins Bellatrix and Narcissa made the desirable pure-blood marriages to Rudolphus Lestrange and Lucius Malfoy respectively, Sirius held them in contempt. His favorite cousin, Andromeda, was disowned by the family as a blood traitor when she married Ted Tonks, a Muggle-born wizard. Sirius would later share this designation and was held in contempt, even hatred, by some members of his family. Sirius had an unhappy childhood. By adolescence, he had come to hate most of his relatives, in particular his mother Wallpaper and his cousin Bellatrix Black. Whereas all other members of the Black family were sorted into Slytherin, Sirius was placed in Gryffindor during his sorting in 1971, showing that his views had already diverged from those of the rest of the family before his years at school. Sirius also took great care in hanging Gryffindor banners all over his room at number 12, Grimmauld Place, to show his difference from the rest of the family. Aside from the shrine to Godric Gryffindor, Sirius did the rest of his room akin to a Muggle boy of his age. He put up pictures of motorcycles and fighter jets, as well as posters of bathing beauties. Honoring Muggle accomplishments annoyed his family, but none so much as angering his mother that Sirius considered Muggle women attractive. The Marauders in their animagus forms. Sirius is the Black Dog, keeping Lupin company in his werewolf form. By contrast, he greatly enjoyed life at Hogwarts. He became friends with James Potter, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, growing inseparable from them. They later discovered that Remus was a werewolf. To support him, Sirius, James, and Peter secretly and illegally became animagus. This allowed them to safely accompany Remus during his transformations and keep him under control. Sirius's form took the shape of a huge black dog, not unlike the Grim, from which his nickname Padfoot was derived. James would become a stag, Prongs, and Peter would become a rat, Wormtail. The 4 friends called themselves the Marauders and used the nicknames Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Padfoot, Prongs, and Wormtail came from their 3 animagus forms, and Moony after his lycanthropic condition. They also created the Marauders map, which allowed them to see where everyone in the castle was at a given time, which made sneaking around and avoiding teachers much easier. Although he later considered himself an idiot during this time, Sirius, along with James, were immensely popular. Teachers respected his intelligence, though not his behavior, and girls adored his dark, handsome looks. His especially rebellious attitude made him ignore them, therefore making girls fawn over his bad boy attitude as well as his looks. Many teachers regarded him and James as troublemakers or practical jokers. Hagrid once compared them to the mischievous twins Fred and George Weasley, saying that the Weasleys could give them a run for their money. Sirius's popularity was not universal. However, a mutual hatred sprang up between James Potter and Severus Snape. Sirius actively supported James, leading to Snape bestowing an equal and lifelong grudge upon Sirius. Sirius later claimed Snape was this little oddball who was up to his eyes in the dark art. From Snape's first moments at Hogwarts, he was one of the many people who hated Snape. Sirius and James often went out of their way to bully Snape. One time, Sirius and James physically bullied him simply out of boredom, though Sirius did admit that he and James were arrogant little Burks, and that he was not proud of his behavior, but he had done nothing to rectify it. He and James eventually ended their campaign of ill treatment towards Snape, but they apparently never apologized. The only time James ever stopped was in front of Lily Evans, a pretty redhead who disapproved of such behavior, whom James later married right after they left Hogwarts. In his 5th year at Hogwarts Sirius played a potentially lethal practical joke on Snape. He informed Snape of how to enter a tunnel under the Whomping Willow that would lead to the Shrieking Shack, where, unknown to Snape, Remus Lupin was confined during his transformations into a werewolf. Snape went there during a full moon, and James was forced to rescue him. Sirius excused his own actions, explaining that he had simply told Snape what he wanted to know about the tunnel while omitting crucial information. He simultaneously claimed it served Snape right. The resentment Snape felt for Sirius was never healed. Snape was not the only student whom Sirius and James tormented during their years at Hogwarts. They also used an illegal hex on a boy named Bertram Aubrey that caused his head to grow twice its original size. It is unknown why they hexed him. At age 16, Sirius finally broke away from his pure-blood family and took refuge with James Potter and his parents. Fremont and Euphemia Potter generously adopted Sirius as a son. His outraged mother blasted his name off the family tree, as was the tradition for those who did not support the family's supremacist ideology. Sirius's uncle Alphard, Wahlberg's brother, sympathized with his young nephew and left him a large inheritance in his will, most likely causing Wahlberg to blast Alphard's name off as well. Sirius was left financially independent by his uncle's generous bequest and eventually got a place of his own. First Wizarding War, 19. Sirius, what was there to be gained by fighting the most evil wizard that ever existed? Only innocent lives, Peter. Peter Pettigrew. You don't understand. He would have killed me. Sirius? Sirius, then you should have died. Died rather than betray your friends, as we would have done for you. Sirius confronting Peter in regards to his betrayal. S. The Marauders in Order of the Phoenix Image. Sirius as an original Order member during the First Wizarding War. After leaving school, Sirius fought against Lord Voldemort, eventually joining the Order of the Phoenix. Around 1977, he and James were involved in a motorbike chase with 2 policemen. Although the chase started off as a bit of fun, it turned slightly more serious when the pair were attacked by 3 men on broomsticks. Sirius and James used their wands to raise the police car that had been chasing them, and their attackers crashed into it. It is unknown whether they got into trouble with the Ministry of Magic. Sometime in 1979, Sirius's father and brother both died. Orion's death was from an unknown cause, while Regulus's death was caused when he drank the drink of despair while trying to destroy one of Lord Voldemort's Horcruxes, and when he tried to get water to quench his thirst, he was dragged to his death by the Inferi, Although Sirius never learned the details of his death, he remained the best of friends with James and attended James's wedding to Lily Evans as best man. When their son Harry was born, James and Lily named Sirius Godfather, thus designating him as Harry's guardian in the event of their deaths. He also gave Harry his first broom at the age of 1 as a birthday present, as stated by Lily in a letter found by Harry a number of years later. After joining the Order of the Phoenix, Sirius found himself roiling with mistrust and stress due to the great terror that was Lord Voldemort. It took its toll. By October 1981, he no longer trusted his old friend Remus Lupin, suspecting he was a spy and excluding him from important information. Meanwhile, Remus himself had taken to suspecting that Sirius was the spy. However, Sirius trusted Peter Pettigrew implicitly, a decision he would grow to regret for the rest of his life. In 1981, the Potters were aware that Harry, along with the son of fellow Order members Alice and Frank Longbottom, had become Lord Voldemort's specific targets. Albus Dumbledore advised the Potters to go into hiding, using the Fidelius charm, which Dumbledore hoped would conceal them from doom. James was adamant about Sirius being their secret keeper, believing that Sirius would willingly die rather than reveal where they were. However, believing Voldemort would suspect him, Sirius suggested Peter Pettigrew as a less obvious choice, keeping everyone else, including Remus Lupin and Albus Dumbledore, in the dark. Sirius and the Potters reassigned Pettigrew to be secret keeper, with Sirius as a decoy. Between the wars, 1980, imprisonment. I comforted the murdering traitor. Rubeus Hagrid recollecting his last meeting with Sirius. On Halloween night 1981, Sirius went to Pettigrew's hiding place and found him missing. Unsettled by the lack of signs of a struggle, Sirius frantically sped to Godric's Hollow, discovering the Potter's house destroyed and his friends dead. Only baby Harry was still alive. Sirius offered to take Harry himself as he was the chosen guardian in the events of James's and Lily's deaths. But Rubeus Hagrid was adamant that Harry was to go to the Dursleys per Dumbledore's instructions. However, Hagrid told him that Dumbledore had made arrangements to send Harry to Lily's sister Petunia. Sirius conceded after an argument and gave Hagrid his flying motorcycle, telling him he wouldn't need it. Nevertheless, after Hagrid had handed over the baby, he intended to return Black his bike, but never got the chance. Pettigrew kills Muggles. Pettigrew murdering 12 Muggles after being confronted by Sirius about the death of Lily and James Potter. After leaving Godric's Hollow, Sirius, overcome with grief and rage, tracked Pettigrew down, determined to kill him in vengeance. However, Pettigrew outwitted Black. Confronted by Sirius on a city street, he shouted out that it was Sirius who betrayed the Potters, and then created a huge explosion on the street with an extremely powerful explosive curse, likely the blasting curse, killing 12 Muggles. This enabled Pettigrew to fake his own death and escape in his animagus form, leaving a severed finger behind as evidence. The surviving Muggles who witnessed the event were pretty certain they saw Sirius murder their 12 companions, and Pettigrew with the curse, and Fudge claimed to have seen Sirius laughing maniacally at the scene of the crime. Sirius was arrested by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and sentenced by Barty Crouch Sooner to life imprisonment in Azkaban, without a trial for 13 counts of murder, with the curse giving the information about the Potters' whereabouts which lead to their death and service to Lord Voldemort. The surviving Muggles were obliviated and given an excuse by the Muggle-worthy excuse committee that a gas leak occurred before they could remember who really cast the blasting curse. Pettigrew was unjustly awarded the Order of Merlin, first class, for his confrontation with Sirius, which, along with the finger that they recovered, were posthumously given to his mother. As time passed, due to misconceptions, many believed that Black drew his wand and killed Pettigrew before the other had a chance of even drawing. Even the other remaining marauder, Remus, believed it was Sirius who betrayed their brotherhood. Marked as prisoner 390, Sirius was placed in solitary confinement at the mercy of the Azkaban guards, the Dementors. Driven to the brink of madness, he retained his sanity by focusing on his innocence, which he said in the Shrieking Shack was more an obsession than a happy thought. It could not be detected by the Dementors, but still allowed him to maintain a sense of self and regain enough strength to transform into his animagus form in his cell. Since Dementors have difficulty sensing the less complex emotions of animals, he was able to remain relatively unaffected by them. However, the Dementors evidently were not concerned about these apparent temporary disappearances, since they thought it meant he was losing his mind like every other convict in their custody, including Bellatrix and some of her fellow Death Eaters. However, his brooding over his friends' deaths and Pettigrew's betrayal became an obsession as well. This was due to hearing many different theories regarding why Harry survived Voldemort's attack being made by the confined Death Eaters, the most persistent of which indicating that they believed Pettigrew to have betrayed them since the Dark Lord met his downfall on Peter's information. This most likely meant that Pettigrew went into hiding as a rat in hopes of avoiding the half of Voldemort's followers who avoided imprisonment, afraid that they will be motivated to kill him if his continuing existence became known, if not returned to their master. Sirius waited until any sources reached within the prison walls, leading to the discovery that Pettigrew was staying with a wizarding family as a rat to keep up on current news about Voldemort, all while getting very weak with no hope of driving the Dementors back without his wand, which was taken from him and stored away under Ministry of Magic safety repercussion. By 1985, Sirius's mother died, leaving the black house elf creature alone in the house, which was thus left abandoned. During Jacob's siblings' second visit to Azkaban during the 1989-1990 school year, Sirius unintentionally saved Jacob's siblings' life when, during a lockdown following the escape attempt by Patricia Rakepick, he howled whilst in his dog form. The loud noise distracted Rakepick long enough for Jacob's siblings to wandlessly disarm Rakepick and retrieve their wand, which Rakepick had forcefully taken from them. Escape from Azkaban. Hermione Granger. Sirius Black escaped to come after you. Oh, Harry, you'll have to be really careful. Don't go looking for trouble, Harry. Harry Potter. I don't go looking for trouble. Trouble usually finds me. Ron Weasley. How thick would Harry have to be to go looking for a nutter who wants to kill him? No one knows how he got out of Azkaban. No one's ever done it before, and he was a top security prisoner too. Hermione Granger. But they'll catch him, won't they? I mean, they've got all the muggles looking out for him too. The trio discussing Sirius Black's escape on the Hogwarts Express. Wanted. Sirius Black wanted poster posted around Hogwarts, Hogsmeade and other magical locations. In 1993, Sirius became the first known person ever to escape from Azkaban. He was, however, unknown to the public, beaten by Barty Crouch Jr. through his mother's sacrifice. After receiving an issue of the Daily Prophet from Cornelius Fudge during an inspection, he discovered that Pettigrew was indeed hiding in his animagus form as Ron Weasley's pet rat Scabbers. Filled with a desire for revenge and concern for Harry, Sirius took his animagus form and, thinned from undernourishment, was able to slip past the Dementors when they opened his cell door to bring him food. Then, he slipped out of Azkaban and swam across the North Sea in his dog form back to the mainland and to freedom. First, he made his way to Little Whinging to catch a glimpse of his godson as a teenager, where his animagus appearance startled Harry before the night bus turned up. News of his escape caused an unprecedented panic as he was the first known escapee of the notorious prison, and many people believed that he was planning another mass murder as well to murder Harry in a mad attempt to bring Lord Voldemort back. Witch Watchers that operated as a special ministry force were used as a means of trying to catch him. But to no avail, the Muggle authorities were warned that Black was dangerous. Sirius took refuge around Hogsmeade and the Forbidden Forest, where he was spotted a few times and mistaken by Harry for the Grim. He made the acquaintance of Hermione Granger's cat Crookshanks, who had recognized that Sirius was not actually a dog, and who had also recognized Peter for what he was. Crookshanks attempted to bring Peter to Sirius, but Ron was very protective of his so-called pet. Sirius also spent some of his time in the Shrieking Shack, planning various ways in which to catch Pettigrew. Half crazed and desperate, Sirius snuck into Hogwarts through the old passageway from the Shrieking Shack, and on one occasion slashed the fat lady's portrait when she refused him entrance to Gryffindor Tower. Later he came to view the Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. During the match, he witnessed Harry's excellent flying skills, which he later commented mirrored James's skill. That Christmas, Sirius filled out a broomstick order form in Harry's name, with instructions to take the gold from his own vault at Gringotts, and had Crookshanks take the order to the Owl office for him. Sirius ordered Harry a firebolt to make up for all the birthday presents he'd missed. Eventually he was able to enter the Gryffindor common room. He accomplished this with a list of passwords Crookshanks had stolen from Neville Longbottom, and shredded Ron's bed curtains in his search for Scabbers. Peter was nowhere to be found since Sirius's escape had prompted him to once again fake his own death and hide. Reunion with Harry Potter. I thought you'd come and help your friend. Your father would have done the same for me. Brave of you, not to run for a teacher. I'm grateful. It will make everything much easier.
Sirius Black greeting Harry Potter for the first time in the Shrieking Shack.
Sirius Ron Whomping Willow. Sirius dragging Ron Weasley underneath the Whomping Willow. In June, Sirius caught Ron carrying Scabbers after the rat had been discovered hiding in Rubus Hagrid's cabin, and dragged both boy and rat through the tunnel under the Whomping Willow to the Shrieking Shack. Harry and Hermione Granger followed, the former intent on confronting Sirius about the supposed betrayal of his parents, despite the obvious differences in their ages and skill levels. Sirius's weakened state, due to being on the run at that time, led to the boy easily, and without a wand, overpowering the older wizard, despite Crookshanks's attempts to aid the Animagus. B3C19M1, Shrieking Shack Wormtail revealed. Professor Lupin and Sirius forcing Pettigrew into human form. Once Harry had Sirius at his mercy, Remus Lupin, who had seen Peter on the confiscated Marauder's map, disarmed Harry and warmly greeted his old friend. Together, Lupin and Sirius revealed Peter's true form. Both wanted to kill their former friend for betraying James and Lily, but Harry prevented them from doing so, believing that it would be better to force Pettigrew to face justice at the hands of the Dementors. That, and he did not want his father's friends to become murderers, as he did not think that would be what his father wanted. Harry Potter 3 Pass Out. Harry and Sirius pass out after suffering a Dementor attack by the Black Lake. As they made their way back to the castle, Sirius hesitantly asked Harry if he would like to live with him, thinking Harry would not want to, but Harry enthusiastically agreed, thrilled at the idea of leaving the Dursleys and finally having a real home. Unfortunately, soon after they left the Whomping Willow, Lupin transformed under the full moon, and, having forgotten to take the Wolfsbane potion in the wake of discovering Pettigrew, was uncontrollable. In order to protect Harry, Ron, and Hermione from Lupin, Sirius turned back into a dog, giving Pettigrew an opening to escape and flee. Sirius was weakened following his encounter with Lupin's werewolf form and could not protect himself when hundreds of Dementors guarding Hogwarts arrived. Harry and Hermione had followed Sirius and found him lying unconscious and surrounded by the hooded creatures. He attempted to perform the Patronus charm, but to no avail. The Dementors nearly succeeded in sucking out Sirius's soul, until a powerful Patronus resembling a stag warded them off. Harry Potter Prisoner Azkaban. Sirius Buckbeak. Sirius prepares to escape on Buckbeak after being rescued from the topmost tower. Sirius was briefly recaptured by Severus Snape and was sentenced to the Dementor's kiss, a fate worse than death. Miraculously, and by Albus Dumbledore's suggestion, Harry and Hermione used Hermione's time turner to help Sirius escape, as Dumbledore had also hinted that more than one innocent life could be saved that night. They rescued the Hippogriff Buckbeak from execution, thus granting Sirius a form of travel. Sirius was once again a wanted man, although alive, soul intact, and innocence known to at least certain people. Soon after his escape, he sent Harry, Ron, and Hermione a letter via a tiny hyperactive owl explaining that it was he who sent Harry the firebolt for Christmas, and giving Harry permission, as his godfather, to go to Hogsmeade. He also apologized to Ron for the loss of his pet, asking him to accept the owl in place of Scabbers. Years in hiding. If you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. Sirius giving advice to Harry. Sirius fled Europe beyond the Ministry of Magic's jurisdiction. He communicated with Harry, but very seldom to retain the secrecy of his location. However, due to his use of exotic birds, Harry suspected him of hiding somewhere in the tropics. Harry grew to greatly rely on Sirius's advice in time of need. Sirius returned to Britain when Harry gave him notice that his scar had been hurting, which had come to be known as a signal of Lord Voldemort's presence or power. When Harry was mysteriously entered in the Triwizard Tournament, Sirius hid in a cave near Hogsmeade, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione occasionally visited him. He did this in order to provide Harry with moral support and advice during this hard time. He warned Harry about Igor Karkaroff, the Durmstrang headmaster, telling Harry that Karkaroff used to be a Death Eater and that he gave up a considerable number of names in exchange for his freedom. This in turn caused Karkaroff to land himself on the wrong side of Death Eaters still loyal to Voldemort, as one of the names he gave up was Augustus Rookwood. Harry told Sirius about seeing Barty Crouch when he was working on the second clue on his way to the prefect's bathroom. Sirius admitted that it was fishy but told Harry to focus on the task at hand and leave the mystery surrounding Crouch's illness to others. After Harry followed Victor Krum to the edge of the dark forest, as Krum wanted to talk to him about his relationship with Hermione, the two encountered a delusional Barty Crouch. When Crouch mysteriously disappeared in the castle grounds after Harry left to retrieve Dumbledore, Sirius warned Harry that someone did not want Crouch to get to the headmaster. He advised Harry to continue his practice of defensive spells and to never wander off on his own as times were dangerous. Following the final task of the tournament, Dumbledore summoned Sirius to his office to meet with Harry, who had barely survived an encounter with Lord Voldemort. Sirius wished for Harry to be allowed to rest from his ordeal, but was overruled by Dumbledore. As Harry explained the night's events, Sirius nearly interrupted twice and was greatly angered. He also showed signs of strong emotion when he learned that shades of his old friends James and Lily had returned and hid his face in his hands. Sirius was allowed to stay with Harry in the hospital wing in his dog form, Dumbledore telling Madame Pomfrey that he was very well trained, and remained so even as he heard Cornelius Fudge besmirch Harry and question his credibility on Voldemort's return. Once the minister had left, Dumbledore began making plans to resist the Dark Lord. He asked Sirius to resume his human form, which also frightened Molly Weasley when she first saw him, as she believed him to be a murderer and make his peace with Snape, although neither was pleased. Dumbledore then asked Sirius to retrieve Remus Lupin, Arabella Figg, and Mundungus Fletcher, and lie low at Lupin's house until Dumbledore contacted him. Sirius promised to see Harry again soon, and left to fulfill his instructions. Second Wizarding War. 9. Rejoining the Order of the Phoenix. I don't like being back here. I never thought I'd be stuck in this house again. Sirius, on being forced to remain in his family home, said, Order of the Phoenix. An order meeting taking place at 12 Grimmauld Place. With Lord Voldemort restored to his physical form, Dumbledore reinstated the Order of the Phoenix, sending Sirius to gather the old crowd and inform them of the situation. Sirius donated his family home at 12 Grimmauld Place in London as Order headquarters. Unfortunately, as he was still wanted by the authorities, Sirius could never safely leave the house and became quite bitter over his perceived uselessness. When he briefly left the house to see Harry to the Hogwarts Express, Draco Malfoy nastily complimented Harry on his pet dog, which, coupled with comments Malfoy made on the train, suggested that the Malfoys recognized Sirius in his animagus form. Harry and Sirius stayed in touch during Harry's school year via Owls and the Flu Network, though Sirius's presence was nearly discovered by Dolores Umbridge during her dictatorial managing of Hogwarts that year. Order of the Phoenix. Sirius. Harry. Sirius sees Harry off at King's Cross Station and gives him a photo of the original Order of the Phoenix. During Harry's 5th year, some of the adults discredited Sirius's ability to parent Harry and often insinuated that Sirius acted like Harry was James, rather than being a proper father figure to Harry. Throughout Harry's hardships with Umbridge, Sirius encouraged him to oppose her reforms and strongly approved of Harry's secret defensive tutorial group for students, Dumbledore's Army. His vigorous support of Dumbledore's army worried Hermione, who thought that Sirius was attempting to live vicariously through them. He also willingly answered all of Harry's questions about the Order and Voldemort, though most of Harry's mentors felt Harry was too young to handle the burden of the truth. 17. He also urged Harry to contact him if Professor Snape gave him a hard time during their occlumency lessons. During his time confined to the Order's headquarters, Sirius fell into a deep depression. When Harry and the Weasleys arrived at Grimmauld Place just after Arthur was attacked by Nagini, Sirius was unshaven and still in his day clothes late at night. He also seemed to have taken to drinking, as he had a mundungus-like whiff of stale drink about him. However, Sirius made a complete turnaround when the Weasley family and Harry decided to stay at Grimmauld Place over the Christmas holidays for its proximity to St. Mungo's, and at one point was heard singing "God Rest Ye Merry Hippogriffs" at the top of his lungs. Sirius also gave Harry advice when he confided in him about how he had been feeling. Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Main article: Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Come on, you can do better than that. And Harry saw the look of mingled fear and surprise on his godfather's wasted, once handsome face as he fell through the ancient doorway and disappeared behind the veil, which fluttered for a moment, as though in a high wind, and then fell back into place. Sirius's last words and death by falling through the veil. False vision. Voldemort tortures Sirius Black. Harry's false vision of Sirius being tortured in the Department of Mysteries. Voldemort used legilimency to implant a false vision into Harry's mind that Sirius was being tortured in the Department of Mysteries, convincing Harry that Sirius had in fact been captured, but in reality Sirius was alive and safe in Grimmauld Place, and also treating Buckbeak, who had been injured by Kreacher, as part of his plan to keep Sirius out of the way on the orders of the Malfoys through Voldemort. After giving Severus Snape a cryptic message informing him of the situation, and then ditching Umbridge in the Hoverden Forest, Harry, along with Ron, Hermione, and fellow DA members Ginny Weasley, Neville Longbottom, and Luna Lovegood, flew to London via the Straw. The students made their way through the deserted Ministry of Magic and gained access to the Department of Mysteries, only to be ambushed by Death Eaters. Sirius Black. Bellatrix Lestrange duel. Sirius preparing to duel Bellatrix Lestrange in the Death Chamber. It was Snape who ultimately saved their lives by alerting the Order to what Harry had seen. Sirius, Kingsley Shacklebolt, Nymphadora Tonks, Remus Lupin, Alastor Moody, and eventually Albus Dumbledore arrived at the ministry and began battling the Death Eaters in the Death Chamber. Black was seen fighting bitterly with an unknown Death Eater. Then he pushed Antonin Dolohov, which tried to curse Harry and used the summoning charm on the prophecy. Dolohov tried to use the same curse on Sirius, but Harry placed Dolohov under bodybind. Death. Sirius Veil. Sirius falling through the veil in the Death Chamber, killing him. Tragically, however, during a frenzied duel with his hated cousin Bellatrix, Sirius was struck with an unknown spell which caused him to fall through the veil in the Death Chamber to his death. 17. This was witnessed by his distressed godson. It would be years before Harry could fully come to terms with the loss of his godfather, and would have a hard time dealing with this loss, because, as Dumbledore flatly stated, Sirius was the closest thing to a parent Harry had ever known. Harry also blamed himself for Sirius's death. Post-mortem. Harry Potter. Does it hurt? Sirius dying? Not at all. Quicker and easier than falling asleep. Sirius's spirit speaks to Harry through the Resurrection Stone. In the aftermath of Sirius's death, Harry, enraged and grief-stricken, unsuccessfully attempted to take revenge on Bellatrix before Voldemort arrived, even attempting to use the Cruciatus Curse. After a short duel between Dumbledore and Voldemort, the latter fled, but not before he was seen by Cornelius Fudge himself and several other Ministry officials, finally forcing them to abandon their smear campaign against Dumbledore and Harry and admit the truth to the world. With that done with, Dumbledore successfully convinced the Ministry that Sirius was innocent all along and managed to get him cleared of all charges posthumously. Black did not get married or have children. As the portrait of Phineas Nicholas, Black's deceased great-great-grandfather, stated, the direct line of the ancient Black family ended with Sirius's death. Had Regulus Black lived, he would have been the heir of the Black home. However, he predeceased Sirius. By right of primogeniture then, his heir was either Bellatrix Lestrange, his eldest cousin, but legally invalidated by her murder of Sirius, Andromeda Tonks, his second eldest cousin, who was disowned, or Draco Malfoy, the next senior male of the Black family, through his mother, Narcissa Malfoy née Black. However, their rights were superseded by Black's will, which designated Harry Potter as heir to all his worldly possessions. Thus, by the will, Harry inherited 12 Grimmauld Place, Buckbeak, Creature, and the remaining Black fortune. Having no great love for 12 Grimmauld Place, the house that held so many painful memories for Sirius, Harry chose to give it to the Order of the Phoenix for their continued use as headquarters. Creature, forced to serve Harry by Black's will, was sent to work as a Hogwarts house elf in the school kitchens, an imposition which did nothing to improve Creature's hatred of Harry. Buckbeak passed back into Rubeus Hagrid's care under the assumed name Witherwings. It was discovered that Sirius, along with others, had a file kept by the Ministry of Magic while it was under Lord Voldemort's control in 1997. It was kept in Dolores Umbridge's office. The document listed Sirius's blood status, his status of his family, and his security status. Because he died in the service of the Order of the Phoenix, his picture had a giant red X crossed over it. Black had given Hagrid an enchanted flying motorbike 16 years prior at Godric's Hollow, after Black discovered the Potters had been killed. After begging Hagrid to give him baby Harry, a request Hagrid refused because he had orders to take young Harry to Little Whinging, Black gave Hagrid the bike before setting off to hunt down Peter Pettigrew. The bike was in Hagrid's possession until it was needed to bring Harry from number 4 Privet Drive to Order headquarters shortly before Harry's 17th birthday. The bike ended up crashing as the Order was ambushed by Death Eaters. Ted Tonks collected the debris and sent it to Arthur Weasley, who later repaired the bike. Sirius Black was one of the 4 shadows that was summoned by the Resurrection Stone to speak to Harry as he went to what he believed to be his death on 2 May. Black assured his godson that dying was not painful, that it was faster and easier than falling asleep. He also promised Harry that he and the others would stay with him as he went to confront Lord Voldemort, and would stay to the very end. When Harry reached the fire, he allowed the stone to slip from Harry's hand. Thus his parents, Sirius and Lupin, vanished. And Harry later gave his first son the middle name Sirius to honor his godfather's memory. James Sirius's personality was very similar to